Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. We're not quite to the start of the NBA season yet, but that doesn't mean that you can't gamble on it, because heck, you can gamble on anything, and gambling is becoming, rightfully so, Sap, more and more readily available for people and legal in different states. So perfect time to lay down some money on some NBA odds, as we've officially gotten odds for the 2021-22 regular season with the schedule being released. I know you don't gamble anymore, Sap, but back in the day, you had it all figured out. You made a fortune gambling, right?
Oh,
You were living in a castle by the sea.
Yep.
Based off of your gambling winnings.
Yeah, I had all the answers. The funny thing is, Jed, the sport I know the least about of the four major sports is hockey. Somehow I did best betting hockey because I knew less of it because I didn't over analyze it. So sometimes when you know more about a sport, like I really know baseball. I think of the four major sports, baseball is actually my strongest sport. So I think I'd have all the winners and all of that stuff, and then you'd lose a bundle. And, football is difficult to bet because you get those backdoor covers. And betting basketball, whether at the NBA level or the college level, is just frustrating because, again, you could be laying 4 points, your team's up 11 with a minute and a half left, and next thing you know, the other team hits a couple of threes and a late foul shot, and next thing you know, your team wins by 2 and you lose the bet. But this is always fun because they put out the totals for each team, and it always looks easy, doesn't it? You look at it and go,
yeah.
Oh, they're going to definitely win more than 46 and a half games. And then as the season progresses, you're like, well, I think they know what they're doing in Vegas. That's why they build those big buildings.
I look at these numbers and I say like 80% of them are like, but I kind of feel like that's exactly the number they're going to end up
that's
on.
good. That's
like,
good.
Damn it. That's the exact number I think it's going to be. So they know what they're doing. Basketball, I think is certainly the most frustrating to bet on, like you said, because in the span of the last 30 seconds, the whole spread can change.
Sure.
Baseball, I just don't know how there's so many games. I don't know how on a day-to-day basis you can gamble on it, because it's like, who the hell knows? One game, some guy could just go berserk and hit 3 home runs. Right. You win by 12. And the next game you're playing the same team and you lose by 12. Like, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. I look at baseball as virtually impossible to bet.
It is a good better sport because you're really looking at pitchers and trends and all that. But again, when you bet a good pitcher, now you have to put up more money. The only thing is that's kind of changed in baseball because a lot of the successful teams don't necessarily have a deep starting rotation. Look at the Tampa Bay Rays. They have openers, or they use their starter for 3 innings. So it's more about bullpens, but you got to be really disciplined in baseball. You can't bet every night and you can't bet every game. You got to kind of pick your spots. I mean, Pete Rose, if you followed any of his, life story, was gambling on baseball, and he would bet the entire board. And that's impossible.
That's crazy.
That's just impossible. I mean, it was
like
so funny.
It's like trying to hit a parlay in the NCAA tournament, like full bracket.
I mean, you're like, what he was doing, he was managing the Reds, and in between, the technology isn't what it is now. I mean, now you could just go to your phone and bet. But back then, he had to literally go to a pay phone or his desk phone to call his bookmaker. But then the Cincinnati Reds, like every Major League Baseball team, they have the out-of-town scores up on the scoreboard. At Fenway, it's right there in the Green Monster. Right. So he'd be watching the out-of-town scores games he bet. And Marge Schott, who was famously cheap, was the owner of the Cincinnati Reds, and she discontinued the service because she's like, why do our fans care about out-of-town scores? Which obviously baseball fans follow the entire sport, not just their own team, especially if there's a pennant race. You want to see what's going on against your competitor. And she canceled that. So Pete Rose was quite upset about that. And I believe at that point, he would, in between innings, go out of the dugout and turn to a friend in the stands and get thumbs up, thumbs down on how the games were going. So there used to be a point, Jet, when I would call, this is back in the early 80s. I was just out of high school. There was a number you called in New York for your updated scores, and you'd have to sit through them all and you're just listening. In the third quarter, the Celtics lead, 87-80, or if it's a baseball
it's like movie
score,
phone back in the day.
Oh, it was crazy. And sometimes Kramer answered and would ask, why don't you tell me what game you're looking for? But you'd have to sit through this litany of scores, and it was a toll call. I mean, now obviously you just get them on your cell phone or just watch watch MLB Network, and the scores are all there. But this is a fun exercise looking at the NBA totals because some of them look really off. But again, Vegas knows what they're doing.
Yeah, or you could listen to, really late night Pharrell on the bench
Yeah.
run through all those scores in his, cigarette smoker's voice. But he's going like North Carolina, AT&T, is it ATT? I don't know what North Carolina. He'll give
AT&T.
Random college scores. He's a big gambler.
Oh yeah.
Pharrell on the bench. But that's neither here nor there. Let's go to the over and under for win totals, Sap. We'll go in alphabetical order by conference. So we'll start with the Eastern Conference, and we're not gonna, really expound on this. We'll just say whether we like the over or the under. Atlanta is set at 46.5.
Yeah, I like the under here. I think they're going to underachieve this year by people's expectations. They overachieved last year. I think Atlanta goes under 46.5 because I also think the Eastern Conference, and I'm going to say this probably 12 times in the next 8 minutes, but I'll say it once now. The Eastern Conference has improved with teams like Chicago, Boston, and I even think Charlotte better, Miami's better. So I think things are going to tighten up in the Eastern Conference. So I'm going to go under 46.5.
I agree with you. I also think that they're cheap and going to be sellers at the deadline. And so I think they'll get a little bit worse. I mean, I still think Trae Young's phenomenal, and I think they'll make the playoffs, but I'll take the under too. This one is one that everybody cares about, Sap. Boston 46.5 as well.
I was torn on this, but I'm going to go under. I think it's, again, a new coaching staff, so you're going to have to adapt to that. So roles are going to have to be defined. They did make a lot of moves in the offseason, so you've got some new players, some moving parts. I think they'll play better towards the end of the season, but I'm going to go under 46.5. That's still a lot of wins.
Yeah, I'm going to say over by a game. I think they'll win 47 games on the nose. That's what I have them at. So I will say over. I think that they're a much more well thought out roster. I think Tatum will parlay that Olympic success into having a really big regular season. I think Brown will continue to be really good. If they can get Robert Williams healthy for a full season, I think that will really help as well. I like the addition of Schroeder too. So I'll say just barely over. I think 47 is the number for me for them. Brooklyn has the highest of any team in terms of their over under for win total at 55.5.
As they should. I mean, they still have what most people believe is the best roster in the NBA, at least top of their roster with Durant, Harden, and Kyrie Irving. I think they're going to go under 55.5 because Kyrie Irving is going to miss 20 games. I mean, that seems to be guaranteed, whether it be through load management or him kind of being disinterested in baseball or some sort of injury. Harden, you're going to have to manage his minutes. You're going to have to manage Kevin Durant's minutes as well. So I think they'll go under this and hope to be healthy and up to speed for the postseason. So I'm going to go under 55.5 with Brooklyn.
Yeah, I agree for the same reasons. It's the sort of method that the LeBron, super teams did too, where they'll kind of coast in the regular season. If they finish, they don't really care at all what seed they finish in, nor should they. It doesn't really matter to them. So I think that 55.5 is a big number. I think they'll probably win around 50, 52 games. So that would put them under. So they do have the highest one, but I'll say under for that. Charlotte, a team we talked about a little bit in the last show we did, Sap, they're set at 38.5.
I like this over. I really do. I think LaMelo Ball from year 1 to year 2 is going to become close to being an elite player. His skill set is so varied, his ability to score, his ability to rebound. He's a great passer. I think he has the ability to be a good defender. His brother, Lonzo Ball, is a good defender. If it's in the genes, then I think LaMelo can be a very, very good defender as well. We talked in a prior podcast that Terry Rozier is a 20 points per game scorer. One of these years, maybe Gordon Hayward's healthy and you've got a nice big three there. It's not an elite big three. It's not a super team, but I think it's a team that's going to win over 38.5 games.
Yeah, this one, I have it like on the button at 38. This one's really tough for me. So I'll say under then, since it's 38.5. I love LaMelo Ball as a player. I think he's tremendous. I don't like that team a lot. I don't see much defense. I don't think Rozier is going to play up to that contract. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the way that team is constructed, but I could be wrong, and LaMelo Ball could be a transformational player. I just don't think he's there quite yet, and he's played 1 year and he missed half the year, so we'll have to see what his health is like. And he missed time when he played, in Australia or Slovenia, whatever the hell he's been. So he's got to show that he can stay healthy too. Let's go to Chicago, who has drastically changed their roster. They've upgraded significantly since last time we saw them. 42.5 is their total.
Yeah, if everything fits, they're going to go over this without question. I mean, they improved their talent level probably more than any other team in the league, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
added some really good pieces. DeMar DeRozan's always been a productive player. You've got Ball, who's come in, and I think, is going to be in the right situation there. You got Zach LaVine, who is coming off of helping the United States win gold in Tokyo. They also have the big
Vucevic.
center they got from Vucevic, they got from Orlando at the trade deadline. So I think they've got some nice pieces there. I think they'll go over 42.5. I think this is going to be like the sexy over for a lot of people, which
Yes.
kind of scares me a little bit, because when everybody's in agreement on something, normally they're wrong. Again, that's why they build those big buildings in Vegas. But I'll go
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, I think that, I think Vegas is looking at this and saying, it's all these guys are playing together for the first time. It might take some adjusting, and it very well might. But I think they made good moves. People are giving them a hard time about the DeMar DeRozan contract. Maybe he's a little bit overpaid, but you have the money, spend it.
Yeah.
They have no reason for them to hold on to it. When has Chicago brought in a big free agent? Not to my recollection. So I like this team with Ball running the show. Doesn't have a lot of pressure to score, which I think is good for him. And then DeRozan, LaVine on the wings, Vucevic in the center, and they have Patrick Williams, who's a young player that a lot of people are really high on. Had a really good summer league, so yeah, I think they're a pretty damn good team. So I'll take the over for 42.5. I think Chicago will be pretty good this year, which I think it will be good. I mean, the league is better when they're a competitive team, because they're a big market who loves basketball, and for most of their non-Jordan lives, they've been a horrible team. So we'll take the over for Chicago. Cleveland is set at 26.5 games. Sap, what do you got there?
I'm going to go over again, 26.5. Not a lot, although, probably midway through the season, I'll say, what the hell was I thinking? Is they're like 11-58 at some point, but I'm going to go over with this. They have Jared Allen at center, who I think is a nice player. Their backcourt is intriguing, but it seems to be somewhat redundant when you look at that with Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. It seems like they have two players that are very, very similar, but I think that they'll go over the 26.5.
Yeah, I'll say under, just because I'm hearing a lot of rumors about them wanting to move on from Colin Sexton, which I don't get.
Right.
He's a nice scoring guard. They're gonna take 50 cents on the dollar for him for some reason. I don't know. They're terribly run team, as you well know, Sap. I mean, they have no freaking clue what they're doing there. So yeah, I like Garland. I think he's a good player. I don't know that he's an all-star caliber player, and I like Sexton a lot too. I thought Sexton at times was an all-star caliber player last year, and Allen's good, but they're dysfunctional mess there. So yeah, I'll say the under. Detroit, the team that had the first pick this past year, they are going to be set at 25.5. Sap.
I like this one to go over. I think they're going to play hard. They played hard last year. They have some nice young players in place. Cade Cunningham, to me, is going to be a player that steps in and seems ready-made for the NBA. I think he's going to have to work on his body a little bit, improve his athleticism, but in terms of his maturity, leadership, and his all-around game, I think he's ready to contribute. So I'm going to go over with Detroit.
I'm going to go under. I think they're in that situation where they're going from lose big to lose small. The next step is win small and then win big. So I think they're in the lose small thing, and I think they'll be competitive in a lot of games and score some intriguing wins. But I think ultimately in a lot of these close games, they just won't know how to close out and they'll lose them. So I'll say the under, but I do think that they are definitely on the upswing. I like Sadiq Bey. I like Cade Cunningham, obviously. I think they're building something interesting in Detroit. I just don't think they're there quite yet. So I'll say the under of 25.5. The Pacers are set at 42.5. Sap.
I'm going under on this. I'm still not sure where this team is going. Again, doesn't seem like a well-run team. Sabonis is an all-star caliber player. I get that, but it just seems like they're constantly like changing. You know, it almost feels like the Red Sox at some point. The Red Sox are going to rebuild the farm system, not spend money. Well, when that doesn't work, then they're going to spend money. Then when that doesn't work, they go back to building the farm system. I know it's more complicated in baseball than it is in basketball because of the sheer roster size, but I just don't get what the Pacers are doing. So I'm going to go under 42.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna go under too. I like Rick Carlisle as a coach, but I just think that they're not that great of a team. Yeah, they have the All-Star and Sabonis. I like Malcolm Brogdon. I think Miles Turner. Eventually he's gonna get traded, right? I mean, you can only be
I
in
would
trade
think,
rumors for
yeah.
so long. So yeah, they lost McDermott, who is, I voted him as the worst defensive player in the league, but he did provide some nice things for them as a 3-point shooter. So yeah, I think the under two. I agree with you, Sap. The Miami Heat are set at 48.5.
I'm going to go over with this. Again, this is an old roster. It's a weird roster, isn't it? You've got like Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, who I think are both past their prime, but they're still really competitive guys. They're going to play well on the defensive end. They're going to, really buy into that culture in Miami. We know that Jimmy Butler's already done that in his 2 years there, and I'm sure Kyle Lowry will. And then they have like a lot of young guys that they have to kind of bring along for that. That's kind of a weird combination sometimes, but I think the talent level's high. Spolstra may be the best coach in the sport, or make a case that he's the best coach in the Eastern Conference. I think Ty Lue may be the best coach in the NBA right now, and he's going to be challenged this year without Kawhi Leonard. But I'm going to go over 48.5 of Miami.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like them a lot as a regular season team. I think that they're going to play every game like it's a playoff game because that's sort of their mentality. I don't think that they are into load management at all.
No.
I think Butler's had some injury problems, but that's because he plays so hard. Same with Kyle Lowry. I think they both feel like they have a lot to prove this year. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they end up with the most wins in the regular season. And they're the 1 seed. I mean, it would surprise me a little bit, but I wouldn't be completely floored. I think they'll win 50 games, which would usually not put you as the 1 seed, but yeah, I think they'll be very good this year. So I agree with you with the over. Milwaukee is at 54.5, the defending champions.
I'm going to go under. I think there'll be a slight hangover. And again, the season went a month longer than it normally does. So they have such a short offseason. You also have two prominent players in Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton that immediately after winning the championship fly out to Tokyo to help the United States win a gold medal. Those two guys must be exhausted. It's going to be a very exciting offseason for Giannis, but also a pretty busy offseason. So when they get back to camp, I think they're still going to be catching their breath. Maybe they get off to a little bit of a slow start. And now as champions, that's a little bit of a different dynamic. Everybody's going to be hunting for them in the regular season. So I'm going to go under 54.5.
I'll say over by just a game, 55. I think that, this is a tough one. And I agree with you. I think there might be some hangover. They're just such a good regular season team because they play such good defense. And Budenholzer is a really good regular season coach. And I think that they'll be playing with an extra pep in their step, though everybody will be hunting them and the East is better. So I might be proven very wrong here, but it seems like it's hard to say that this team won't win 55 games because they perennially are right in that space. And Giannis, I think, is going to be playing with just such extra enthusiasm, and I think they'll be really excited. Though I didn't love them losing PJ Tucker in the offseason. I thought that was a little bit cheap. So we'll see. But they did keep Bobby Portis as a fan favorite, but they didn't really do any moves to get better. And I think it is tough when you win a championship to say, okay, we're just going to rest on our laurels. You need to keep trying to get better. So I might be wrong, but I'll say 55 wins. That puts them in the over. The Knicks are at 42.5.
I'm going to go way under here. They overachieved last year. I think Tom Thibodeau got the most out of that team. That type of coaching style only lasts so long, to the point where I think maybe the players will push back a little bit this year. It's an exhausting style that he plays. I'm going to go under 42.5. The expectation is going to be high for the Knicks. Adding Kemba Walker, I don't know exactly what that's going to do. You're going to have to load manage him with his knee. So I think the Knicks are going to,
Tom Thibodeau
deal back a little bit. He's not into that all that much,
no.
right? So I think he's going to go under 42.5. The Knicks.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that last year they definitely overachieved. And like you said, this sort of doesn't last all that long with Tom Thibodeau. And I think that they will be maybe like the 7 or 8 seed. But I don't think they'll win 40. I don't think they'll get to the 40 game threshold, honestly. Orlando has the lowest win total projection in the East, 23.5 games.
Yeah, probably deservedly so. I mean, they're in a total rebuild, although I kind of like their backcourt. Look, I'm a huge Jalen Suggs fan, and I think he has that type of leadership ability that when he shows up, he's going to, really take over the reins, even though he's only 19, 20 years old, only played 1 year at Gonzaga. He has that feel to him, doesn't he, that he's going to be someone who's going to hold his teammates accountable. So I'm going to go over 23.5, not by much. The roster is depleted, but I do like that backcourt.
Yeah, I like Suggs. I like Fultz. I don't know when he's going to necessarily come back. I like Jonathan Isaac too. I don't know when he's going to come back. They just don't have a lot of talent, and the talent they do have is very young and hasn't won. So I'll take the under, which seems hard because 23 is a low number, but I'll still take the under. I like Suggs a lot. I think he's going to be a really good player. It's hard as a rookie point guard to impact winning. It's really hard. And they don't now have a lot of other options there. So I think that it'll be under. I would venture to guess they'll have the worst record in the league. But we will see. Philadelphia has a very high win total, 51.5, Sap.
I'm going to go under because we still don't know what the hell's happening with Ben Simmons. And Joel Embiid's not the most durable guy in the league. So there's those question marks. I think they're still reeling after losing in the second round of the playoffs to the Atlanta Hawks, a series they should have won. Didn't
handily, easily. They should have
won. They should have won that series in 5 games. They're better than Atlanta, and I think they could have beaten Milwaukee. You could be talking right now about the defending NBA champion Philadelphia 76ers very easily. If Ben Simmons played the way Ben Simmons is supposed to play to go along with Embiid, they had the requisite shooting to really fit in with those guys, and they just dropped the ball, no pun intended. So I think they're going to go under. Now, obviously, before the season, they could move Ben Simmons maybe to Portland for Damian Lillard. Now that changes everything. Then I think they become, along with Brooklyn and Milwaukee, favorites in the Eastern Conference, and maybe even put Miami into that group. But that's going to be a big question if they can pull off that trade. I'm going to go under because we still don't know what's going to happen with Ben Simmons. If he comes back, what state of mind is he going to be in?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Sap. I think it's going to be under because as of right now, it looks like he's going to stay there for the start of the season. Now, I think they're actively trying to move him, but I think it's hard because his value is so low right now. They don't want to take a bath on his value, but other teams don't want to trade for him because one, it's a really hard sell to their fan base at this point in time, and two, he's been so non-communicative with Philadelphia. I think teams are also internally gun shy. Like, I don't want to deal with this guy. He doesn't seem to even care. The only message we've heard from him is that he wants to be traded. Well, okay, that doesn't really help you get traded. Yeah, I'll say under, but like you said, Sav, I think it could certainly change really quickly, depending on what they get for him if they're able to move him. But if they go into the start of the season with him, and if they go through the whole season with him, I think it's going to be a mess. I think his confidence is completely shot. I think Embiid and Rivers don't want anything to do with him. I don't think he wants anything to do with them. Tobias Harris, you're hearing trade rumors now too. For a team that looked so promising last year, they're a mess right now.
And I have a great idea for a podcast. Just hit me, Jet. Besides our podcast, obviously, which is the best in the business. But how about a podcast with Ben Simmons and Kawhi Leonard? How would that be? I mean,
it would be very boring.
It would be very boring. It would be very boring. That would be a great podcast. Kawhi,
NPR might want to get in touch with them. They like very droll. I don't even know what those guys are interested in. What do they talk about?
In Ben Simmons' case, it doesn't even feel like he's interested in basketball. Like,
yeah, at least Kawhi likes basketball.
I think he's a cyborg. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, it would be hilarious watching those two guys in a league loaded with personalities. And I guess you can make a case that Simmons and Kawhi have personalities. They're different than the other players. I mean, I think that would be genius. I think I've got to work on that. The Ben Simmons, Kawhi Leonard podcast.
Get in touch with their agents. Yeah, there you go.
Sure, Uncle Dennis in the case of Kawhi and Rich Paul in the case of Ben Simmons. I've got both guys on my speed dial.
Rich Paul must be like, what the hell with this guy? I think he's had so much success in the NBA being able to do whatever he wants. And then Ben Simmons is like, he's never had a guy whose value is just torpedoed like this. I mean, really, Ben Simmons, any team would have traded for him at one point last season. And now nobody wants to trade for him.
Really
I mean, It was when you have that bad of a playoff series on in the national stage, it really really hurts. I mean,
Yep.
it killed John Starks for a long time too
Yep.
and that was just a game where he was that bad. But I mean, Ben Simmons had a terrible series, like you said, Seth. They should have won that in 5 games, no problem.
Easily.
All right, let's do the last team in the Eastern Conference, the Washington Wizards. Out goes Russell Westbrook, in goes Spencer Dinwiddie, and a bunch of scrubs from the Lakers. They still have Bradley Beal, who was second in scoring in the league last year, 33.5, Sap.
I'll go under. I think Russell Westbrook, just his energy last year got them over this type of total and got them into the play-in tournament, and then they, were able to get into the playoffs and play 5 games against the Philadelphia 76ers. I think when you take his compete level away somewhat, it's going to hurt the team. So I'll go under 33.5. And are you anti-Canadian? Because we never talked about the Toronto Raptors.
Oh yeah, how did I miss the
See
Raptors?
that?
Just shame on me. I didn't. I just missed the Raptors.
Our favorite
outright.
executive in the sport, Masai Ujiri.
36.5 for the Raptors. Sorry about that.
Under for Toronto, because they really depleted their roster, and losing Kyle Lowry, who again, kind of like Russell Westbrook, like he's at least so competitive that he's going to drag you to more wins than you normally would as a team. Russell Westbrook's not going to put you over, championship level, unless he's playing on the Lakers, of course, where he's not going to be asked to do as much. But Kyle Lowry is a guy, because he competes, he's going to drag you. And even though he wasn't able to do that last year in Toronto, of course, Toronto's playing last year their home games in Tampa, which,
right.
Although it should have rubbed off Tom Brady, because he got the Lightning to win the Stanley Cup for a second straight year, and he got the Rays into the World Series. The effect of Tom Brady, it didn't seem to rub off on the Toronto Raptors. But I think that both Washington and Toronto will go under.
Yeah, I agree with you on both under for both those teams. I think the Raptors are in tank mode. I think they're trying to trade Siakam, but they don't want to, just give him away for nothing. But I don't think he impacts winning enough. He needs to be the secondary guy. As we saw, he's really good in that role, the second or third guy. So Toronto, they just gave Masai Ujiri a big contract extension. And I think he knows how to build a team from the ground up. So I think that's what they're going to do there. And what they're trying to do in Washington, they weren't that good with Russell Westbrook. And, I like Bradley Beal a lot, but I haven't seen ever in his career him impacting winning.
Right.
So 33.5, I'd say under, but I mean, slightly. 33 seems like the number for them.
Bradley Beal is kind of the Eastern Conference version of Dame Lillard, except Dame Lillard is better. He's impacted winning, right? I mean, Portland at least makes the playoffs. They made it to the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago. They did get swept by Golden State, but there's no shame in that. Golden State was loaded with Durant and Curry and Klay Thompson. Were all in that series. But yeah, Beal doesn't seem to be a force multiplier, whereas Dame Lillard is. So I think that's the difference between those two players.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the Western Conference again in alphabetical order here. Sap, we'll start with Dallas and the fighting Luka Doncic's 47.5 for Dallas.
That's a high total, but it speaks to the greatness of Luka Doncic. I'm going to go over. I think he right now would be my favorite to be MVP. I could see Luka this year with this new contract. If he spends the offseason getting in better condition, I could see Luka going 30, 10, and 10. I mean, that's not outside of the realm of possibility for a player this talented. I mean, he's had years where he's 28, 9, 8.5. So he's right on the precipice of averaging a triple-double, a 30-point triple-double, which is ridiculous. So I think if he's able to do that, he can carry that team past 47.5 wins. I'm not crazy about the rest of the roster, but they made the coaching change. Jason Kidd, that's what Luka wanted. That's what Dirk Nowitzki wanted as, an advisor to Mark Cuban. So I'm going to go over only because I'm probably going to be rooting for this.
I will say under. It has nothing to do with Luka Doncic. It's all completely to do with the rest of the roster, which I think is crap. And I don't think they improved. I don't really think they have a mechanism to improve that much unless they trade a bunch of draft picks, which maybe they do. But yeah, I don't like the team very much. I love Doncic, but 47.5 is a high win total. And so I'll say under.
A lot of wins.
Denver 47.5 also.
Well, we got to know when Jamal Murray comes back, which may not be till mid-season, if not later. I mean, he had a gruesome injury at the end of last year. They have the reigning MVP and Nikola Jokic. I'm going to go over because if Murray can come back at mid-season, and again, maybe that's asking a lot. They could be a team that goes on a pretty nice run post All-Star break or something like that. And they added some pieces last year that now have a chance to really get used to their system and see how much that they can grow. I'll go over 47.5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll go over. I think Jokic, which has shown he's good enough to keep the team afloat and winning games, even without Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray should be back at some point, like you said, midseason, hopefully. I think Michael Porter Jr. should continue to grow. I mean, that's sort of the big X factor for them. His
Yeah.
game. If he continues to grow, they'll be a contender. If he doesn't, they won't. So we'll see. But I have faith in the reigning MVP and in Michael Porter Jr. And so I'll say over 47.5. This one might be the most interesting one on the board, Sap. Golden State Warriors 48.5.
I'm going to go under. I don't think Klay Thompson's coming back at the beginning of the season, so that's going to impact how many games they win. And when he does come back, he's coming off of 2 major injuries. He's missed 2 full years. That is a concern. Now, he is the type of player, because he's one of the 5 best shooters I've ever seen. He could probably play in a wheelchair and still be very efficient. Also, we have to see what moves they make, because they're always in play for Ben Simmons. And if they move on Ben Simmons, do they move on from Draymond Green, who criticized Steve Kerr and Bob Myers in a podcast last week with Kevin Durant, where he basically said they were telling him that he had to apologize to Durant, right, and he basically told him to go, you know what. I don't know how that sets with the front office of the Golden State Warriors. But I think they're going to go under. And also, Steph had an incredible year last year. Is he going to be as durable as he was last year? That's a question, because, you know, Steph, as great as he is, has missed some time. He's a smaller player, and there's always susceptible to getting hurt at some point. I'm going to go under. That's a lot of wins, 48.5 for a team that didn't even make the playoffs last year.
Right, I agree. And you know, you're asking young players to pick up a lot of slack for when Klay Thompson's out. We don't know when he's coming back. If he comes back around the All-Star break, Christmas, whatever, he hasn't played competitive basketball in nearly 3 years. So I don't know what he's going to be like. So yeah, I'll say under. I that one might be one of my favorite unders, Sap. It's a high win total for a team, like you said, who didn't even make the playoffs last year. As great as Steph is, they lost in the play-in tournament. Houston Rockets 26.5.
I'm going to go under. I mean, they're in full tank mode, although we both like Jalen Green, think he's going to be a star in this league quickly and eventually a superstar, but they're still in that mode of trying to build something there. So I'll go under 26.5.
Yeah, under, and he'll average over 20 points a game, I think, as a rookie.
He could be rookie of the year.
Who the hell else is going to score for them?
Right.
So yeah, I like his numbers as a rookie. I like their numbers as under the win total for the team. Clippers, 44.5 games, a little surprisingly high considering that we don't think Kawhi Leonard will play this year.
Yeah, this tells you Kawhi is not going to be there for the entire year, which I think is probably 90% possible at this point. You never know with Kawhi, although Kawhi comes back later than earlier when it comes to injuries. I think Ty Lue's the best coach in the sport right now, but you know, they're an older team. They made some strange moves in the offseason for financial reasons, which kind of blows my mind when you've got the richest owner in all sports who's worth $100 billion, and Steve Ballmer, who's building a $3 billion arena in Inglewood. I'm going to go under 44.5. The West, again, both conferences are strong, and I think the middle of both conferences is better than it's been in the past, so that will impact every team. So I'm going to go under for the Clippers.
I agree. I'll go under too. I think outside of Paul George, it's a very questionable roster. And I think that he's probably exhausted. And it's a lot to ask of him to be a one-man band carrying a team to 44 plus wins, which I think he's never been asked to do before. So I'll say under there too. But I don't think Kawhi. Yeah, I don't think Kawhi's coming back. Obviously, that changes if he does, but I don't think so. Not this year. The Lakers, Sap, your Los Angeles Lakers, 52.5.
I think they sail over. I really do. I think, look, 2 years ago, they were on their way to being the best team, best record in basketball, right? They took the regular season seriously. I think Anthony Davis took it seriously. LeBron was all in, finished second in MVP voting to Giannis. I think they're going to have the same mentality, but now you add Russell Westbrook, who look, I don't know if Russell Westbrook is the right fit in LA, but I do know during the regular season he's going to play his ass off. So they'll be nights in January, February when maybe LeBron's not there or Anthony Davis isn't there, that Russell Westbrook will get a triple-double and carry them to a win over some middling team. So that will pile up some of these wins. So I'm going to go over 52.5.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that might be one of the best bets on the board. Personally, I think that for all the reasons you just said, I think Westbrook will keep them afloat in the regular season and competitive. Should LeBron or Davis miss some time, I think that LeBron. This is the most rest he's ever gotten, basically, since he was a rookie. In between season and off season, so I think he'll be rejuvenated. Anthony Davis should be, and I think Anthony Davis has a lot to prove. Because he's been hearing the chatter. So I think that they also added good supplemental players like Malik Monk and Kendrick Nunn. I think they did a good job filling out the roster. Dwight Howard, Carmelo Anthony. Yeah, I think they'll have the best record in the West in the regular season. So I'll take definitely the over 52.5. I think they'll approach 60, honestly. So that would put them well over that.
I could see 58 and 24 exactly, which is going to sail past 52.5. I agree with you. This is one of my favorites on the board, that the Lakers will go over 52.5.
Memphis 41.5.
Ja Morant's going into his third year. I think you're going to see him make the All-Star team. I mean, he's just a special player, and he's another guy who just gives you it all every single night. When you have your best player doing that, I'm going to look at that team to go over the win total, right? Because look, there's going to be games where Memphis is overmatched, whether it's against the Lakers or Brooklyn or Milwaukee, whoever, and that's going to be difficult for them to win those games. But there's going to be a lot of nights where they're playing a team that they're comparable to, that doesn't have the compete level, or a player that has the compete level of Ja Morant, and that can put them over the top. Long story short, I'm going to go over 41.5 for Memphis.
Yeah, I'll say under. It has nothing to do with Ja Morant. It has to do with the way the team's operating, which is they're being cheap because of the pandemic. Yeah. They traded Jonas Valanciunas for Steven Adams. Steven Adams is a nice player. Valanciunas is better scorer, certainly. Let's talk about them trading Kyle Anderson and Dylan Brooks, Dylan Brooks, you can make a case as the second best player on that team.
He was last year, yeah.
And it looks like they might trade him for financial reasons. We don't know what the situation is with Jaren Jackson Jr. in terms of his health. So I'll say under, because I think the team is going to trade assets because they lost money during the pandemic, and that's a small market. And so, I'll say under that 41.5, which sucks for Ja Morant, but that's the way that they're going to operate business. This is one I like a lot, Sap. Minnesota 33.5. I'm curious what you have here.
I'm going under. I'm guessing you like over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. Anthony Edwards, I think, is one of your favorite players in the league, if not ascending to becoming your favorite player in the league. And look, he really lit it up, especially in the second half of his rookie season. If someone can wake Karl Anthony Towns up, you obviously have a top 12, top 15 player. And also, let's just also, and look, Karl Anthony Towns is very easy to get on, but he went through a lot. He lost, I believe, 9 members of his immediate family or close family to COVID, including his mom. So the last year and a half,
he got COVID Towns, too.
He got it too, and he lost his mom. Who, look, we've both lost our moms at a very young age, and mine died at the age of 62, 35 years ago, and I still really aren't over it. So I would imagine that the same with Karl Anthony Towns. So again, time does heal all wounds, and maybe he's going to have a more normal Karl Anthony Towns season and be playing at that level that 3 years ago he was considered like the guy you'd want to start your franchise with because he was so young and so talented. And now, we're giving him and Anthony Edwards an over and under at 33.5, but I don't know. They just can't seem to get it right in Minnesota. I'll go under. I know you love the over.
Yeah, shame on me. Maybe I like the over because I like the talent of Russell.
Oh yeah,
Russell, Towns, and Anthony Edwards. I like that talent there. I don't know if they're going to keep Patrick Beverley, but they did just trade for him. I kind of like him on that team. Mm-hmm. Should he stay? I think he's a good fit in terms of bringing seriousness and intensity to a team that has not been serious or intense. We'll see what happens there. But I do think that if they keep him, that was a nice move. I just believe in the talent, which is maybe stupid. And that's a very low win total for a team that has 3 guys who could be all-stars. Towns has been an all-star. Russell's been an all-star. Edwards certainly seems like he's on his way to being an all-star. That usually equates to more than 33 wins. So I
Mhm.
do like the over there, but maybe I'm stupid because they've not proven it on the court. I just am believing in the talent there. We'll go
Don't you
to
get the
another.
feeling with that one, Jet, is that it's going to be not close to that number? They're going to either win like 26 or
Yeah,
40, right?
yeah.
It's not going to, they're not going to be near 33 and a half. It's going to be, you think they'll be probably a 40 win team, and I think they'll be a 26 win team. And one of us will be right, one of us will be wrong, but I don't think they're going to be close to the total. It's kind of interesting because they do have talent.
I do think it's funny too that they really want Ben Simmons. They've been in the mix for this. They really want him. But they're like, well, we won't trade D'Angelo Russell or Karl Anthony Towns or Anthony Edwards for him. So, okay. So how are you going to get Ben Simmons then? It doesn't
What are they
really.
going to, are they going to farm off A-Rod to help the Phillies win the National League East? I
I,
mean, like what can you
like these
possibly
guys
send
are
them other than those
untouchable.
guys?
They're like, take anybody else. Well, the rest of your
Man.
roster stinks. We
Yeah,
don't want
yeah, I know Ben Simmons, value's gone down, but not that much.
So we'll see if he ends up in Minnesota, which would probably be a good place for him because I mean, like, who cares? It's very low stress in Minnesota.
Perfect.
The Pelicans, another team with a lot of talent that has been vastly underachieving, 39.5. They have a new coach. They had a questionable offseason. What do you see with the Pelicans?
I love Zion so much. And the thing I like about Zion, not just the talent, but also the compete level. I mean, he seems to bring it every night. And again, I want to see what it looks like when he gets to camp. If he's in the shape he should be in, then that engine can just be on, its highest level all season long. I'm going to go over. He played really well last year, and there were times where he fit in as a top 15, top 20 player. I think he certainly can elevate into that this year very easily. So I'm going to go over because I think it's a tough amount though, because essentially you're saying is New Orleans going to be at least a 500 team, and I think they
Right.
will be.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you're saying they're going to be a 500 team on the strength of Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. And, on paper, you'd say, okay, but the past 2 years, that hasn't been the case.
No,
They traded,
I know.
they lost Lonzo Ball. They got virtually nothing in return from Chicago, Thomas Satoransky, which, doesn't really help them at all. So that they don't really have a point guard, which is odd.
Yeah.
Is Zion going to play point guard? I don't know.
You could run your offense through Zion or Brandon Ingram. They're both really good passers, and they're both good decision makers. So maybe that's how you're going to do it. We know the NBA is now about positionless basketball. It's not. I mean, look, Phoenix had Chris Paul, who's the quintessential floor general. Maybe you run it through Zion and Brandon Ingram. Look, just getting rid of their former head coach, I think, is a step in the right direction. Stan Van Gundy not being on the sideline, looking like. Who's the porn star that
Ron
looks
Jeremy.
like?
Yep. You
Ron
always
Jeremy.
forget.
Why do I always forget that? Yeah, this is how
Conveniently,
long
you always
ago.
forget.
Well, I haven't watched Ron Jeremy. I mean, may he rest in peace. He did have quite a eventful life, but yeah, I mean, not having.
Jeez.
I think he is. And also, as we know, the other day, Charlie Watts, the great drummer from the Rolling Stones, passed away. May he rest in peace at the age of 80.
No, Ron Jeremy's still alive and kicking, Sap.
Is he really?
Yeah.
God love him. How old is he?
I think he might be in prison for
I'm
sexual
sure
assault.
he is. Well, they'd be a big.
He was born in 1953.
Oh, that's it. So he's 67, 68 years old. Yeah, he would. I'm not going to go there. I was going to say he'd be a big hit in prison. But I think that the change in coaches will help New Orleans, and you just expect Zion to get better in year 3. Maybe I'm just so high on Zion and John Morant that I'm putting both of those teams to go over, and even though logically it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I mean, they hired Willie Green as their coach. He's never coached before. He was assistant with Monty Williams in Phoenix last year. Played in the NBA for a while. So I don't really know how that's going to go. It's almost counterintuitive because I'm like banking on the talent of Minnesota to go over their wins, but saying to the Pelicans, prove it to me because they haven't yet. But I'll say under just because they have. I think they got worse in the offseason, and I don't know if Zion can stay healthy.
No, big question.
Those marks. 2 things, I'll say the under rather than speculate on them taking a leap. Oklahoma City has the lowest win total on the board of any team at 22.5.
I would say they go under. I mean, their best players, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yep.
Am I correct in saying that?
Yep.
Can you make a case? And I'm not trying to knock him. He's a really nice player. I know you like him a lot, and I do too. You can make a case that he's the best player of any team in the league. That's what Oklahoma City has. Is that
No,
maybe Cleveland?
Orlando.
Orlando, yeah,
Orlando.
Orlando, Cleveland, and yeah, I mean, because I think like Sacramento has De'Aaron Fox, like
Yeah.
who's better than those guys, right? So okay, so I'm going to go under with OKC. I'm going to go under 22. They're in full tank mode, right? And Sam Presti's got
Sure.
114 draft picks over the next 7 years, so you'd hope he'd land the top pick in the draft, several times over the next few years, and he normally gets it right when he's drafting that high. So I'm going to go under.
Yeah, it's a really low total, 22 and a half.
It really is. Yeah.
So I'll say over based off of just it's such a low total. I feel like they play competitive, though maybe that's just because they always beat the Celtics. And so I'm not really in tune to what they're actually doing. Like they lost like 19 games in a row by like 20 plus points, and then they beat the Celtics. So I kind of think that they're better than they are. I mean, they suck, but 22 and a half is really bad. So I'll say over slightly. Maybe they'll win 25 games and Gilgeous-Alexander takes a step up. It's not a good team.
No.
It's not a good team at all. Phoenix, the defending Western Conference champions at 51 and a half.
Under. I think it's going to be a tough year for them. Sometimes the team that loses in the NBA Finals the next year, there's a little bit of a hangover, kind of like the Super Bowls. You lose in the Super Bowl, you come back the next year, and you're still trying to process why you lost the Super Bowl. I think that can happen in the NBA. Of course, the most recent history has been LeBron going to every final. So the times he's lost, he generally goes back again and oftentimes wins the next one. But that's LeBron. I think they're going to step back a little bit. I think they were somewhat exposed in the finals by the Bucks. And, I think Devin Booker is a player that's elevated himself as a perennial all-star. DeAndre Ayton is going to have to improve. I thought he was really improving throughout the postseason until he got to the finals, and it didn't work. And is Chris Paul going to have another year where he's as healthy as he was last year? I think it's going to go under.
I agree with you. Definitely under for me. I think for all the reasons you just said, I think there's going to be fatigue. I think there's going to be hangover. I think there are going to be some potential injury concerns.
Yeah.
I also think the Western Conference is going to be healthier and better, with the Lakers being probably healthier, the Warriors at some point being healthier, the Nuggets getting healthier. Maybe Luka will take a step up too. I think, and if you're thinking the Pelicans are going to be competitive, that's just another team for them to have to worry about. I think the Timberwolves will be more competitive. So there's another team they have to worry about. And so, yeah, I think under for sure. Phoenix, Portland at 43 and a half.
I'm going to go under only because who knows what's going to happen with Dame Lillard. Are they going to trade him before the season, or is it more likely during the season? Because he still has years on his contract.
Right.
So that's a potential move at the trade deadline when Philadelphia or whoever says, okay, we're going to go all in now and let's go get Dame Lillard. Maybe Portland is looking to get draft picks or draft swaps to try to rebuild. So I'm going to go under for Portland.
I don't think they're going to trade him this year, so I'll take the over. I think it's very hard for in an 82 game season for the Damian Lillard team to have less than 43 and a half wins. So I will say in a shortened season last year, they had 42. So I will say they'll go over slightly. If they trade him, obviously, then it will, be well under that, because they're not going to get anybody close to as good as Dame Lillard is. The Kings are at 36 and a half.
I'm going to go over. I really like this team. You know what I think of De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell, along with Jalen Suggs, will probably be my two favorite rookies to watch this year. And I know Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green, were the 1-2 picks in the draft. And I think they're going to be outstanding players. I think it's a really good draft class. But I think Sacramento is going to be more competitive than they've been. That's not saying much. They really haven't been competitive. It feels like for a generation. I mean, like they were good in the mid 2000s. Like since then, they haven't been. Like since we got into high def TV, the Sacramento Kings have not been good. But I think they'll be a little bit better than 36 and a half.
I will say under, because, and it's not that I don't like the team, it's that I don't like the makeup of the team. I like the 3-point guards. They have a lot, but they have 3-point guards. Right. I just don't think it's a well-rounded team. I will say book it. They will make a dumb trading one of those three guys at some point in the season, because their owner is incredibly impatient and does not understand basketball. So I think under, because they'll make a trade that hurts them at some point. Mitchell, Halliburton, and Fox, all very good players. I think are all going to have really nice careers. It doesn't make sense to have 3-point guards. No, you can't operate that way. I like Rashawn Holmes in the front court, but I don't like him enough to put them over this win total. So I'll say under.
Is De'Aaron Fox someone that I'm going to bring it to the Celtics, but is De'Aaron Fox someone the Celtics could be looking at? And the case being that eventually he's going to be ready for a huge contract. And we know that, Sacramento doesn't generally do that. So if they're going to trade one of those guys, Halliburton and Mitchell are much cheaper. Would they look at trading De'Aaron Fox to a contending team?
No, because I don't think that they make trades to try to tank on purpose. I think they want to make moves that are splashy and try to bring in like a big name.
Okay.
So that's the only reason I don't think they would do that.
Okay.
Like I think he's just an impatient. He just wants to win. It's not that the owner doesn't want to win and is cheap. It's that he's not good at understanding what it takes to build a competitive basketball team. So I'd love De'Aaron Fox in the Celtics. I love De'Aaron Fox. I think he's great. I just think that they will get antsy and try to trade for a guy who's probably like past his prime and an all-star, has been in a couple all-star appearances, and try to sell that to their owner who's, so I don't know. But yeah, I'll say the under. The next one, Sap, this is my favorite one on the board. San Antonio Spurs, 28.5.
I thought it was a misprint when I saw this. Like, I know they have one of the worst rosters in the league, I think. I mean, probably one of the 6 or 7 worst rosters in the league, but I've got to think they'll go over. It almost looks too easy to go over that it's probably going to go under. So I'll say over because I think you're going to say under.
No, I was going to say over.
Okay,
There's
all right.
No
so we're in agreement, right? Yeah, this is like
in hell.
Like
a Greg Popovich team loses, wins less than 30 games. No way in hell. Not happening.
This would be like the Patriots last year having an over and under of 4.5. Like, even though their roster's not great, they don't really have a quarterback. It's like Bill Belichick, right? So he wins 7 games. Like, is Popovich going to go 22-60? Like, that's why it looks so obvious. This is one to monitor. Okay, because again, Vegas is not stupid. So I'm sure everybody's looking at this going, the San Antonio Spurs 28.5, like that's incredible. And then somehow they're right on that number as we get down the season. I agree with you. It should go over, but it looks so obvious. Like sometimes when it's obvious, go the other way.
Yeah, listen, they lost a lot in the offseason. They lost DeMar DeRozan, they lost Rudy Gay, they lost Patty Mills. Those are arguably their 3 best players.
Right.
But at the same time, I got to think that there was a reason they let them all go because, Popovich, I think, knows basketball. And I think that they like Keldon Johnson, who played for Team USA. They like Lonnie Walker. They like DeJounte Murray. They like Derek White. They have these interesting young players who are going to get more playing time now. And I think he'll get something out of them. Zach Collins, they signed maybe for a little bit too much money, but maybe he'll flourish there. Doug McDermott, I'm sure they'll put him in a good position. Maybe they paid him too much money, but I don't think they're going to lose. They'll win at least 30 games. I can't.
I think
see
so.
them.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It is. It's the Patriots, having a win total of 4.5 with Bill Belichick as the coach. It just doesn't seem possible.
So that's my favorite one on the board. And maybe
that's
dumb,
a good one. I'm with you on that. I'm sure
Seth.
We'll monitor that throughout the season as San Antonio's like 18-60 going into the final, week of the season, and we're like,
if they just have like
maybe
one
Vegas knows something.
If they just have like one good like stretch of like 4 or 5 wins in a row, they'll eclipse it.
So, don't you think his coaching is good for some wins? I mean,
I
know it's not football, right? The coach in football has more impact than the coach in basketball. You still need talent. It's no, coincidence that Popovich won when he had Duncan. And it's also no coincidence that Belichick won when he had Brady. But the football coach can have more impact than the basketball coach. When I kept looking at this going, is this 38.5, not 28.5? And weren't they in the play-in tournament last year? They got blown out, right? So it's like, and I know they lost talent, but I mean, losing Rudy Gay he's a veteran. He's been around forever. I know that's a loss. DeMar DeRozan was probably their best player last year. So yeah, I'm going to go over on this as well.
Yeah, I like Murray and White and Keldon Johnson and Lonnie Walker. I actually think they're all good players and interesting players. And I think the purpose of losing all this in the offseason was to see what they have here. And so maybe they'll flourish. And maybe Keldon Johnson, he didn't play much for Team USA, but he was on Team USA. Maybe that ends up building them. Popovich just won a gold medal. Maybe he's got a little bit more swagger. So yeah, I'm taking the over there. And the last one we got in this show, Sap, Utah 51.5.
I'm going to go under. I mean, they had the best record in the league last year. They lost to the Clippers in the second round. And it was disappointing because it was 2-2, and Kawhi Leonard was out, and they still couldn't finish that series off. They should have beat the Clippers, gone to the conference finals, and maybe they would have beat Phoenix. And I think they would have matched up better against the Bucks than Phoenix did because they do have size in Rudy Gobert. But I'm going to go under in this. I think sometimes when a team has such a good regular season, everything kind of falls in place for them. Although they did this with Donovan Mitchell getting hurt late in the season, sometimes you come back to norm. I mean, I don't think anybody thought the Utah Jazz were the best team in the Western Conference last year. They did have the best record. So I'm going to, like Phoenix, I think they're going to come back to the pack a little bit this year. I'm going to go under 51.5.
Yeah, I really hate this one. I'm torn on this one. I would say stay away from it. I'll say under just slightly by like a game. I do think that they are still good and viable. I don't think that they're going to win the West, but I like their trio of Mitchell, Gobert, and Conley. They added Rudy Gay, who I think is a solid addition to them. Anytime Utah can add anybody of relevance in free agency, right, I think that's good. They have Bogdanovich. They have Ingles. I mean, they're a good team. They have a lot of good role players on that team. But that's a high win total. And we know what they are at home, which is very, very difficult to beat. On the road, it's a little bit of a different story, but I'll say under slightly and reluctantly.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under. I think again the Lakers will be the best team in the West, and then after that, I think there'll be a scramble for the second best team in the West, and it'd probably be Phoenix and Utah, Denver, Dallas, whoever. The Clippers no because they don't have Kawhi Leonard. So I think the West has a very huge middle class. Yeah, and then the Lakers appear to be the favorites, and Golden State's the wild card because when does Clay come back? And how does he look when he comes back? I'm confident he's going to be fine when he comes back. The man can shoot. I think you could take Ray Allen, who I know we talked about in the prior podcast. I mean, guys like that can shoot like in their sleep. So I'm not worried about that. But, what exactly, is he like with the knee and the Achilles? I mean, those are two major injuries back-to-back years. So I think Golden State's really the wild card. They could be the second best team in the West, or they could be the 7 or 8 seed.
Yeah, sure. I think to me, and we'll talk about this more as the season approaches, I think the East is clearly better than the West.
It is now. Yeah, it is.
I think it's completely switched. Whereas the West was dominant for years and looked better. I think the East is definitely. I think to me, if you're looking at Brooklyn as the favorites, which they are considered the favorites in Vegas, and then you look at Milwaukee, the defending champions. You look at the Sixers, who won the East in the regular season last year. You look at the Hawks, who were really good. The Heat improved. The Celtics improved. The Bulls improved. Yep. I mean, that's a pretty damn deep conference. In the play-in tournament, you might have some crap teams, but I think that's better than the West. I really do, especially with Kawhi Leonard out. I think that makes a big difference.
Well, see what happened. LeBron went to the West, and then everybody left the West to go to the East to make the East stronger. Durant, possibly. Harden. Yeah, that's my theory. And I know the LeBron haters are going to say, look, he's back in a conference that's not as good as the other conference. Well, maybe it's because he went to the West. Everybody said, let's get the hell out of this conference because this guy has a tendency to go to the finals. So
I think he has an ability unlike any other to read tea leaves very well and see which way the wind is blowing and get out of dodge when the wind is blowing in a bad direction. And I think he knows how to read it.
Kind of like a quarterback that spent 20 years in Foxborough and then 1 year in Tampa.
Yeah,
Tom Brady saw that the AFC was getting much stronger, right? Because all the great young quarterbacks were in the AFC. Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, I wouldn't call a great quarterback, but a very good quarterback. Lamar Jackson, an MVP. Josh Allen, who finished second in the MVP. Buffalo and Miami were improving. And I think Tom Brady said, well, maybe it's time to get the hell out of the AFC East because after 20 years of owning it, those teams are getting better. He looked at the roster in Tampa and said, they've got a lot of players here. In fact, Tampa has 9 players on the NFL's top 100. That's pretty impressive. And that includes Tom Brady. And he looked at it and says, New Orleans is the team that's getting old. Their quarterback's going to retire. Atlanta and Carolina and rebuilds. Let me go to Tampa. That's a pretty good spot for myself. And really the only team I think that could beat Tampa in the playoffs is Green Bay. And that's even a difficult one, I would hope. But you get my point. But I look, the comparisons with Brady and LeBron are so true. I know when I bring it up, people go, oh, no, Brady's. It's like, no, they're very, very similar. They're both. LeBron's approaching going into his 19th year. Brady's been here forever, and they're both right at the top of their game. So that's the one comparison. Plus, they're very, very smart. And when they walk into an organization, it changes the organization because both are ultimate force multipliers. So the comparisons between Brady and LeBron are there. I mean, you don't think of that because LeBron's, one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen in pure athletic ability. People don't think about that with Tom Brady, although I think he's underrated as an athlete. You don't play quarterback in the NFL at that level without being a superb athlete, but the comparisons I think are very, very true.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's your opinion, Sep. I just like, one guy was.
Now you sound like Jenny Taft.
Yeah. Well, one guy was on the cover of Sports Illustrated as junior in high school. The other guy was a backup quarterback in college.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm not where they came from, but where they're at. And again, they got to where they're at by different methods, right? But I just think that and I'm working on a column, which for some reason I can't get it going, but the column I'm working on is the three best quarterbacks in the NFL are very similar to the three best players in the NBA, right? So you got Giannis and Patrick Mahomes. I think they're similar, like very charismatic, kind of like outlandish skill set. Like Giannis is 7 feet and does things that point guards do. Mahomes does all sorts of crazy things on the field. I think that Aaron Rodgers and Kevin Durant are very similar, like maybe the most gifted to ever play the game, but both kind of thin-skinned and petty at times, and are always chasing ghosts. In the case of Durant, it's LeBron. In the case of Aaron Rodgers, it's Brady. And then Brady and LeBron, I think, are similar in many ways. So
yeah, no, I get it
from
from your
my
perspective.
Ass and write that column. Yeah.
Why you'd want to keep putting LeBron in the same category as Tom Brady? It makes sense.
Okay, Skip. Okay, Skip. I guess he's not in that. I guess he's not in that category.
Nope, he's not.
Nope.
But that's gonna do it for us. So I hope you listen to our win total predictions. And if you do really well, give us the credit, maybe a cut. If you didn't, just ignore that we ever said anything. Don't blame us for it. We're just giving our opinions. Doesn't mean to necessarily put money on it. But again, if you win on it, we'll like a share of it. We are the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jen Sapp. We're presented by Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check out our Twitters for all the latest information on the show and our different musings and polls, etc. At John Sapp 25. That's 25 at the end of that. At Jet Stryer. We are wherever podcasts are found. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/Jet Stryer. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you later. See ya.